non-standard discrete jobs. Non-standard discrete job. So non-standard discrete job, why it is required? When standard discrete job in flow status, against standard discrete job, so we can't perform the revert. Then if required to perform the revert, I'll create the non-standard discrete job. Then with standard discrete job, so as required we can create move transactions. But it's not a mandatory, already that we understand. Say, if producing the finished product, it is not required, routing is not required, move transactions not required, even discrete job also not required. But non-standard, against non-standard discrete job, so here in the system, so it will not create any move transactions, not required actually. So say if you want, you can. And one more thing, even bill and routings are existed against assembly. When you create a non-standard discrete job, system it will not default components and operations to the non-standard discrete job. Why? Because rework means what? That is specific. So you can replace the specific component or you can perform the specific operation. Due to that reason, system it will not default any components and operations from bill and routing to the non-standard discrete job. When bill and routing existed, operation details, components details will default to the always standard discrete job only. Why? Because in the standard discrete job, so you will consume all the components, you will perform all the operations. But when you come to non-standard discrete job, it is specific. Where you want to replace the which component you want to replace in the finished good, in which part, in which area in the finished good you want to perform the rework. So that replace the component and perform the rework in which specific operation you want to perform. So that is what non-standard discrete job. So due to this reason, system it will not default the operations, it will not default the components. This is the reason behind this. Why? Even bill and routing existed, bill information and routing information will not default to the routing. Okay. In the non-standard discrete job, which spare part I am replacing, which operation I am performing, I want to record it. How we can record it? So whenever I open the non-standard discrete job, I want to see, right, why this non-standard discrete job they created. Any spare part they replaced, or this work in which operation they perform. If you want to know them, we can find it. How we can find it? Which spare part they replaced, in which what is the operation they performed against this non-standard discrete job. How we can maintain that information? Again through material requirement form. After creating the non-standard discrete job, you will not find any component details, any operations. If you want to maintain information, what work, what task completed against this non-standard discrete job, you go to material requirement form. There you select the what are the spares you replaced, and from the operations form you select which operation you perform. But even you listed what are the operations you performed in the non-standard discrete job, you will not create any move transaction. Just for record purpose, what operation we perform, that we can maintain in the non-standard discrete job. So here you can see already that scenario we discussed. Without any routing, we created one standard discrete job. Manually, I assigned operations to the specific job. Then we created move transactions also. But same thing I am repeating against non-standard discrete job, even though you can't create any move transactions. Why? Because it's a standard functionality. Against always against standard discrete job only you can create the move transactions when operations are available against that standard discrete job. Even operations available against non-standard discrete job, so you will not create any move transaction. Why? Because system it will not allow you. Standard functionality is you should not create any move transactions against non-standard discrete job. So that we are going to now test it. Okay, fine. And one more thing here, we discussed WIP accounting class. We defined, right? That WIP accounting class created for what? Standard discrete job. Same you can't use for the non-standard discrete job. Separately you have to create another WIP accounting class for the non-standard discrete job. So accounts you will maintain separately for standard discrete job and non-standard discrete job. Same accounts, real-time practical environment you will not use for the standard and non-standard. Okay. First step 1. Define WIP accounting class for the non-standard discrete job. See, remember this one, very important thing actually. I think almost now, some 5-6 times I repeated this one. You tell me difference between standard discrete job and non-standard. If I want to produce quantity, new quantity, I'll create the standard. If I want to go for rework, I'll create the non-standard. But immediately they will ask the question. So we perform the rework against standard discrete job. Yes, we can do. When? Before closing the job. Once job is closed, then I'll go for non-standard discrete job. Say, don't stick with, no, I can't do rework with standard. If you can do it, that must be complete of release status. Step 1, define WIP accounting class for non-standard discrete job. Define WIP accounting class. Define WIP accounting class for non-standard discrete job. Navigation. WIP setup. WIP accounting classes. WIP setup. WIP accounting classes. Okay. So will you produce finished good against non-standard discrete job? See, you are producing and performing the rework against standard discrete job. In the same way, will you produce finished good quantity against non-standard discrete job? Again, they will ask this question. First, let me show you this one. I'll tell you that pattern. In one interview, they asked actually. I didn't test it till now, that one. They asked me question. So, will you perform the rework against standard? Yes, I said yes. But that must be before closing the status. But next question they asked, will you produce the finished good quantity against non-standard discrete job? I'm not sure whether it is work or not. After this scenario, I'll show you that. So, class DJ underscore non-standard discrete job class NSDC. Non-standard discrete job class. Here type. Select asset non-standard. Asset. Again, expense non-standard, asset non-standard. So when you will clear with this classes type, when you are clear with expense item and asset item. Inventory asset item, inventory expense item. If item is inventory asset item, against that item, if you want to perform the rework, So you will select the class asset non-standard. If item is expense item. Further, if you want to create non-standard discrete job, you will create another WIP accounting class with non-standard. Sorry, expense non-standard. Right. Items are inventory expense item, inventory asset item. If item is asset item, I'll create WIP accounting class with asset non-standard. If item is inventory expense item, if I want to rework on it, I'll create the WIP accounting class expense non-standard. Clear, right? So now, so it is what by it is what asset item or expense item. It's asset item. I'll find the profit or loss on it. So I'll select the asset non-standard. So then select all the accounts with valuation accounts and variance accounts. Okay, here I am selecting same. So when this account not required to select standard cost account, here now I am selecting the standard cost. Why I am selecting the standard cost? So here we selected the costing method standard. When you select average, it is not required. So then save the form. Save the form. And one more thing, once again I am telling this here. When valuation accounts will impact, when variance accounts will impact, when you issue the raw material from inventory to shop floor, when allocate the resources for the job, with valuation accounts will impact. When variance accounts impact, when job is closed. When job is closed. These 2 points you remember. Save, close the form. So, inventory valuation accounts, what will happen? Debit or credit? When raw material transferred, with valuation account, debits. When finished good transferred to the inventory, valuation account, credit. In raw material case, debits. In finished good case, credit. So then, close this form. Next, continue. Create non-standard discrete job. Create non-standard discrete job. Create non-standard discrete job. Navigation with discrete jobs. With discrete jobs. With discrete jobs. Select. And one more question. Against one job, will you perform the rework against multiple finished goods, multiple assemblies? First, let me ask this question. So, will you create standard discrete job against multiple finished goods? Same time, one job, I want to create 150cc model and 250cc model. Will you create? So here you can't create. Always this is assembly is mandatory. You can select either this one or that one. 150cc or 200cc. So we can't create one standard discrete job against multiple finished goods. Same question. They will ask you in non-standard discrete job. Will you create non-standard discrete job against multiple assemblies for the rework? So will you create or not? We can create. Standard discrete job we can't create against multiple finished goods. But non-standard discrete job we can create. That means at any time we can perform the reward for the different models, different assemblies. That's possible. I'll show you that one. When how it is possible. Yeah. Select what happened. Select new. So here when you tab out, system will generate the job number or you can enter. So let me have BZH underscore non-standard discrete job 1. Here type is what? Non-standard. Type is non-standard. See now what will happen? See the screen. Assembly field. It is a optional. It's not a mandatory. But for the standard discrete job, it is mandatory. So you can select always one assembly, one finished code. If it is optional, what does that mean? If you want, you can select, otherwise leave it. Okay, when you leave it, anything here, assembly is not selecting, how system will know on which assembly you are performing the rework? So that we can do, when you are transferring that finished good components from inventory to shop floor, in the transaction form, we can specify it on which are the assemblies we are going to perform the rework, which are the space we are going to remove it. So there we can specify it. It's okay, fine. So your class. So class is not defaulted. Why? Because it is non-standard. Standard WIP accounting class we assign to what? WIP parameters. So it is not defaulted. So here you select manually. How many classes we defined for the non-standard? Only one. You select LOV, you can find it. VJX non-standard discrete class. Okay, fine. See here, if you noticed in the standard discrete job quantities, you can find here MRP net also, that means you will find in enabled mode. Here it is in grayed out. So on how much quantity you want to perform the rework? You tell me. On how much quantity you want to perform the rework? Here I selected 2 quantity. Why here it is showing 0? It is not a new quantity. I am not going to produce any new quantity. On 2 already produced. On 2 quantity I am going to perform the rework. This 0 is the output for the finished goods. Why? Because I am not going to produce new. So that is the one thing. And one more thing here. Okay, this 2 quantity performing rework for which finished good? 150cc model or 200cc model? Huh? So where see here assembly is not selected, right? Then this is the quantity belongs to what? Which finished good? How we can say this is for 150? We can't specify it. We will not know from this job this 2 quantity belongs to which assembly. Just I selected, this is mandatory 2 quantity. When here assembly selected, then you can understand. So for this assembly we are performing the rework for 2 quantity. But assembly is not selected. So you will not know this 2 quantity. So performing for which finished. Okay, that's okay. But and one more thing. For the standard discrete job, if you select start date, automatically system will select a completion date. If you select completion date, automatically system will calculate the start date. Based on what? Operation finished good lead time, operation lead time percentages. But here you have to select manually both. Why? Because I am not going to perform producing entire finished good. I am not going to consume entire all the components. are not going to perform all the operations. So system will not know how much time it will take to complete the rework. So you have to select manually based on what rework you are going to perform. So select start date and completion date both manually. So timings you can select different or dates also you can select different. And one more thing here. In the standard discrete job supply type here you will find in enable mode. Now it is in grayed out. Why? Because I will not use bill. Even bill existed also. I will not use bill against non-standard. And routing. So here also completion supplementary not required. And one more thing here you can ask question why based on bill it is in disable mode. Components and operations are not available against this non-standard discrete job. Here you are not selected assembly. You can ask that question, right? Even you select here assembly. Just a minute. Don't write it. DJ underscore by. So this by having the bill and routing, even though based on bill it is in grayed out. Why? So if type is standard, this you will find in enable mode and you can find the operations as well as components. Even you selected also, so you will not find defaulted components and operations. So let me remove this one. So what I am trying to tell you, against one non-standard, you can perform the rework against at a time, so multiple finished assemblies. That is the reason here I am not selecting. Okay, so then save the form. Save the form. See here operations are not available. Even you selected here assembly and components also you will not find it. Then close the form and change the status released. Save the form. Save the form. So transaction complete, one record applied and saved. Then select OK. Now against this job, what are the components? What are the spares you transferred from inventory to shop floor one thing? What operation you perform? That also I want to see in discrete, non-standard discrete job. How we can? So first note down the job number, then close this form. Now job number is what? BJS non-standard 1. Okay. Against this job, what are the assemblies you want to perform rework? That you have to specify somewhere, right? How you can perform that? How we can manage that? Continue. Now, what I am doing? Now I am going to transfer finished good quantity and components quantity from inventory to shop floor. What type of transaction will create? With finished good quantity and components quantity. I am going to transfer from inventory to shop floor. Earlier, what we created when we performed rework? Against finished good, we created completions return. For the what? Components. I created WIP issue transaction. Once rework is completed, I created WIP completions for against finished good, WIP return for components. Now here in the non-standard case, non-standard case, so you can't create completion return. You have to create WIP issue only. WIP issue for finished good as well as components. Finished good as well as, see, again same job, if you are performing the rework, you create the with returns. If you are performing the rework against non-standard discrete job, you have to create with issue only. Right, here don't confuse. We performed rework against standard discrete job. But to transfer assembly quantity from inventory to software, we create a transaction type is with completion returns. Now I am creating the non-standard discrete job. So you have to create with issue for assembly quantity. Continue. Create with issue transactions. Create with issue transaction to transfer assembly quantity and components quantity, assembly quantity and component quantity from inventory to shop. Navigation with material transactions with material transactions. With material transactions with material transactions. With material transactions with material transactions. Select job number NSD1 non-standard discrete job 1. Select specific component, radio button. Select specific component. Select button, continue. Select button, continue. Select button, continue. Now select here items. Items meaning here you select assembly as well as components, both. So here DJ underscore bike. This is what? Yes, this is not here. This component is not on bill of material. I don't want. So it is from this sub inventory, finished good, sub inventory. Now in the finished good sub inventory, on hand is available 28 in inventory. Now what I am doing, I am going to move pre-quantity. So this is one finished good. Right. Against this non-standard discrete job, performing the rework against bike for the pre-quantity. And the same time you select another finished good also here. That means what? Against one non-standard, we can perform the rework against multiple assemblies. So select DJ underscore bike 150cc model. So here 15 quantity available at organization level, at finished goods sub inventory level also available 15 quantity. And against how much quantity you want to perform the rework? 5 quantity. Clear, right? What we are discussing. See, against now one non-standard discrete job, I am transferring two different assemblies. One is byte, another one is the byte 150. So this is what? It's possible against standard discrete job? It's not possible. Okay. So performing rework, where you want to perform the rework? Okay. So against byte, I want to replace the wheels. Against bike 150cc, I want to replace the engines. Now you select component quantity. bj underscore wheel assembly. How much quantity you want to transfer? Huh? Raw material 1. So this is the wheels we are replacing for bike. How much quantity we are performing the rework? Huh? How much quantity? 3 quantity, right? So select 6 quantity. Only I want to replace rear engine only. Sorry, rear wheel only. Front. So that case also you can change the quantity. So next is what? DJ underscore engine. So engines we are replacing against what? Bike 150cc. So how many engines you have to transfer? 5. Now 961 engines are there. Now I am transferring 5. So now to assembly quantity transferring and to components quantity transferring to the shop floor. Save the or select button done. Select button done. So now those details, assembly details and component details. Will you find it against non-standard discrete job? So when after creating the job, I showed you there were no any components and operations. Now if issue transaction created. So this information find in the non-standard discrete job. So we can find it. Against this job, non-standard, what are the assemblies we transferred? What are the components we transferred? We can find it. Continue. Once transaction done, close the form. Next, continue. Find non-standard discrete job component details. Find non-standard discrete job, non-standard discrete job component details. Non-standard discrete job component details. Navigation with discrete jobs. With discrete jobs. Enter the job number. We are finding the details for already created job. So enter job number NSD1. Select button find. Now see select components. Select components. Select components. Select components. Here see to bike, see bike quantity we transferred 3 quantity 150cc 5 we transferred and engines we transferred 5 wheels we transferred. Now so what against this job, against what are the assemblies we are going to perform the rework, we can find it. What are the components we are replacing also we can find. But so this task operation in that means what this is the rework in which operation you are going to perform. That also I want to maintain in discrete job, right? In future, whenever I open the non-standard discrete job, if I want to say, okay, these are the on those finished goods they perform rework, they replace this two space, and what operation they perform. If they want to find it, operation details also we want to maintain in non-standard discrete job. How we can maintain? Continue. Assign operations to the non-standard discrete job. Assign operations to the non-standard discrete job. Assign operations to the non-standard discrete job. Navigation, wait. Job or schedule details, operations. Wait. Job or schedule details, operations. Wait. Job or schedule details, operations. So select job number. Select job number. Select button, find. Select button, find. Select what are the operations you want to perform. Operation 10. So here we can define another operation. Replace the components. Can you define some other standard operation? Replacing components. That you select. But here I am selecting one word, assembly. So here, second, after replacing the engines, again I'll go for testing. Save the form. Save the form. Only two operations performing against non-standard discrete job. One is replacing, another one is the once again we'll go for testing. See, that means what? Against non-standard discretes, whatever operations you want to perform, you select here manual. Then close the form. So again, see here, don't write it. Discrete jobs, job number, select button, find. See in the operations, 10th operation, 20th operation. When operations available, we can create new transactions, right? That also we discussed in standard discrete job. But see here, move transactions. Enter job number, select taboo. See what will happen? Non-standard job has no assembly, no transactions allowed. You can't perform transaction against non-standard job without an assembly. See that means you can't create any. Even you select assembly also you can't do that. So against non-standard discrete job, you can't create no transactions. Only we can create against standard discrete job. So okay, fine. Now operations are completed. So we replaced wheels for bike, replaced engines for bike 150cc. So the task is completed. Operations are completed. Once again, I have to move this assembly quantity and whatever we removed, that quantity also return to the inventory. Right. Now, what type of transaction will create now? For the finished good, what type of transaction? WIP return only. WIP issue I created, WIP return. For both, we created WIP issue, finished good as well as components. Against non-standard discrete job, if you want to return, for both you will create the WIP return. So, finished good as well as components. Continue. Create WIP return transactions. Create WIP return transactions. Now, under issued column, how much quantity available in the non-standard discrete job? 3 available for bike, 5 available bike 150cc, 6 available wheels, 5 available engines. Remember that one, okay? Create WIP return transaction to return assembly quantity and components quantity to what? Inventory. Components quantity to inventory. From where? Shop floor. Navigation with material transactions. 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 Select job number. Select here with return. Select with return. Select with return. Select specific component. Select specific component. Select button. Continue. Select button. Continue. Now you select what are the items you want to return. See, sometimes whatever quantity transferred from inventory to shop floor, after completing the reward, you will not return to the inventory. Some components. Now what I did, to assemblies, two components transferred. Same, to assemblies, two components returning. But sometimes some components cases, you will transfer to the shop floor, but you will not return to the what? Inventory. What? You tell me. Example. So like greases, some grease transferred, and some lubricants, some petrol, diesel, clean the space, and one more thing, waste cotton. So waste cotton also you will transfer from inventory to shop floor. That waste cotton after using, cleaning the space and cleaning the hands, again will you return to the inventory? No, right. So that you don't think always whatever we transfer to the shop floor, again will return to the inventory. Sometimes you may not return to the inventory. Some components cases. Okay. Select item BJ underscore bike. Finished goods sub inventory. From which operation? Now operation field enabled. Why? Because two operations are assigned. Earlier it wasn't grayed out when we created with issue transaction. There were no any operations. After creating the with issue transaction, then I assign operations to the job. So if you want to transfer, finished good quantity, components quantity again a specific operation, first you do assign operations to the job, then you create the with issue transaction. Then you can select the operation. So select from this operation, how much quantity? Now it is 25. Why? Because 3 quantity available in the shop floor. 3 quantity. Next line, BJ underscore bike 150 cc. Finished goods sub inventory. From which operation? 10th operation. 5 quantity. BJ underscore engine. Scrap sub inventory. We removed, right? So 10 quantity, sorry, yeah, 10th operation. How much quantity? 5. BJ underscore wheel assembly. Scrap sub inventory. From which operation? 10th operation. 6 quantity. 6 quantity. Select button, done. Select button. Close the form. Okay. How we will know whether successfully we transferred or we returned this assembly and components quantity to inventory? From inventory, not from, sorry, not from inventory, from WI. So that is the one thing, and from the discrete job also we can find it. Select find, go to components. So here under, earlier it was an issue. Now when return, you will not find anything under issue. From the job also we can find it. So successfully we return the quantity to the inventory. See, in real time, so who will have the view material transaction form access? Higher people. So end user will have the only discrete job form. How end user will know from the discrete job? If not available in issued column, so that means successfully we transfer the quantity to the inventory. So this is what non-standard discrete job. And one thing I told you, right? Okay. So on and average, I'll get it the 100. We can produce 100 pockets with 50 grams. 100 pockets. Just I'm taking the examples. Don't take mathematical calculation accurately. If I use 5 kgs of potatoes, I can produce potato pockets with 50 grams. 500 pockets I can produce. But will you produce exactly 500 grams pockets? Why? Because here potato chips you are making, one pocket it contains net weight 50 grams only. When weighing, so we'll accurately calculate the, that means weight 50 grams will you maintain. So if one piece, if I put it, that will be 51 grams. So if I remove from that pocket, that can be less than 50 grams. So then how, when you can maintain exactly 50 grams, then that piece you have to cut it. Half piece you have to keep it in that pocket, then you can maintain the 50. That anyway it's not possible. And maintaining less than the 15 grams also, so in the market, so that is definitely customer. So we customer feel bad. So what we can do? So we can make it that pocket with more than at least 2 to 3 grams. 52, 53, maximum 55 grams. We can maintain that net weight. Actually, on pocket you will find what net pocket net weight 50 grams. But if you measure it, if you see the weight, you can find it normally. So if you are doing business with ethics, definitely where you will find more than the 50 grams only. So if you are adding extra grams per each pocket, after filling 500 pocket, so how much you will lose? Maybe there again some 100, 110 grams extra. So we are giving, that means we are using on work order. So now we planned for 500. Now in this case, will you find it exactly 500 pockets? You can find it less than that. But sometimes we can find it more than the 500 also. When, so here we are making the biscuits. So there is already raw material is available. So here we are planning producing the 1000 biscuits. Sometimes you may get it some 10, 15. I will not tell you, I can't tell you 10%, 1%. Anyway, it's not possible getting more than that. So if getting more than that meaning is what? You are reducing the quantity in, you are reducing that weight, whatever you decided in the quantity. Then only you will get it the more than the work order quantity. Rarely you will get it in 0.5 percentage or 0.2 percentage. If I plan for 1,000, maybe I may get it 5 or 6 extra. So this is what over completion. When system it will allow you to transferring more than the job quantity from shop floor to inventory. See now, say I'll tell you. Here, see the screen. Discrete jobs, new. Here, create work order. BC underscore bike. So released quantity 10. Work order quantity 10. So save the form. Select button complete. So save the form. So work order is completed. Now work order quantity how much? 10. I want to transfer 12. Produce, see work order created for 10. I want to transfer more than 10. So go to material transactions, completion transactions. Okay. Give completion. Okay. Here more transactions are available, right? Okay. More transactions. Work order 10, 40 to move 10 quantity. Save the file. Here you should not enter 12 quantity. While moving, you have to, okay, 12 quantity only you have to enter, right? Yes, we have to enter 12 quantity only. Yes, that is correct. So here, let me do one thing. 40th operation, remove 40th operation, run. So what I'm doing, again I'm moving back material now. 40, run, 40 to move here, 12 quantity. Here, transaction quantity must be less than or equal to available to move. So here it will not allow you producing the more than the work order quantity. Then when it will allow? Continue, write it. Here, this option we can select at two places. First, let me show you here. Their setup with parameters. The with parameters, somewhere it is available. Other, yeah, default over completion tolerance. Here, if I select 10, if work order quantity is 100, I can produce maximum 100. If it is 1000, maximum 1100. Here you select it, always from here it will default to the discrete jobs. Otherwise, directly you can select the job level also. Create discrete job. Create discrete job. Create discrete job with over completion. Create discrete job with over completion. Navigation. Wait. Discrete jobs. With discrete jobs. With discrete jobs. Open the form. Select new. Job number, standard discrete job, BJ underscore by. Select release, 10 quantity, start date. Here you go to, yeah, go to more, go to more, Tolerance type. Percentage or amount? Percentage means that will be quantity different based on your quantity. Amount means always will be same irrespective of your job quantity. If I select amount 5, work order create 100, maximum you can get 105 only. If I create work order 1000, maximum how much you can get it? 1005 only. So if you select percentage, so on quantity wise, that over completion quantity will be different. If it is 100, then only 1000, 100 I can produce. Select button, save. Select buttons. Then close the form. Next, create more transactions. Create more transactions. Create more transactions. Create more transactions. Navigation, flip, more transactions, more transactions. Create more transactions, more transactions. Select job number. Select sequence 10th to 10th. What happened? We released, right? What is the job number? I think 16. Yeah. Job number is 16. Fine. 10 run to what year? To move. So actually work order quantity 10. How much quantity we produce? 12. Will system allow 12? Huh? So I think you have to select 11 only. Transaction quantity must be less than or equal to available to move. Sorry. First enable this one. Over completion. Then you select it. First enable this one. Over completion. First enable this one. Now here 12. Just testing. Say this one tolerance are exceeded. Why? Because selected 10% only. If it is 10 maximum, you can produce how much? 11 only. So select 11. Select button save. Here only almost we confirm. It is allowing it to produce the more than the work order quantity. Save the form. Now, how much quantity awaiting to transfer to the inventory? 11 quantity. But work order created for 10 quantity. So next what? Create condition transactions. Huh? Huh. Now if you select one, maximum you can select one. If you select 10, maximum 10. Huh? No, you select amount. Select. If you select amount, always tolerance will be same irrespective of your job quantity. Okay. Ranking అవసరం లేదు. No need to maintain the over completion. So you can, that only I told you, right? Work order created for 10, but shop level people they should not so, that means we produce only 8 quantity. If you say that 8 quantity we produce, they have to return for the 2 quantity. That is what? Any time you can produce less quantity. Say sometimes one customer ordered for 1000 quantity. We started production. Already we produced 500 quantity. Now customer is requesting, okay, we don't want 1000 now. Unexpectedly, Unfortunately, our order was cancelled. So he produced 700 only. Then what he will do? Actually, work order created 1000. Then after producing 700, it will stop the production. That raw material it will return to the inventory. That is, anytime it's possible, less quantity production. But over completion only, so it is specific. Next, completion transactions. Go to move transactions, completion transactions. Enter job number. Here also you can find it. Work order quantity 10, but available to transfer 11 available. Select continue. How much quantity? 11. Select button, done. So what over completions? Another interview question. So next tomorrow I'll continue the class.